Hey everybody, happy Monday. Well, super cool stuff to talk about today. You'll like this. So we're going to talk about some crises and stuff that happened to JFK, his administration, some of his policies. Then we're going to talk about the assassination of JFK. So, we had mentioned, I believe, in a previous unit about the Berlin Wall. Well, this is when the actual Berlin Wall comes up. It doesn't happen right at the immediately after the Berlin airlift. It actually takes place a little later. So what happened was what we had talked about with the Berlin airlift, that Russia, even though it wasn't Stalin, Russia was pretty grumpy about people going from East Berlin over to West Berlin. All right, that really made Russia mad about that people were doing that. So they asked America, can they go into West Berlin and retrieve their people? America's like, yeah, that's a 0% chance we're going to let that happen. So they're like, fine. The way they are going to prevent people from going from East Berlin to West Berlin is they're just going to build a wall around West Berlin. And they are going to basically cut off West Berlin from the rest of the Soviet Union. This is crazy because people had been able to go back and forth pretty quickly, just wander back and forth from both sides. All of a sudden they wake up one morning and there's like troops and barbed wire that are cutting the city in half. Nobody is told anything. So if your family happened to have gone and spent the night with a friend's house or something on the other side, that next morning, there's barbed wire and soldiers that you can't get back over. They're going to progressively build a wall. So there ends up being a wall between the two sides of the city. If you got divided that night with zero warning, unless you waited it's about 35 years, you do not see them and you do not have contact with them for 35 years. I mean, that's crazy. It wasn't super common. It absolutely happened. But it's just crazy how that happened. And sometimes people just got stuck trying to get back. And there were people, and I got a video clip here, and you can see people like trying to sprint through the barbed wire. Some of them made it. A lot didn't. It gets crazy because they're going to end up building a wall. Now you're like, well, people made it over the wall. No, they didn't. Once they got like their final form of their wall here, people didn't make it over the wall, and I got a picture of what the final wall looks like, and you ain't making it over that. There were people that escaped and snuck in or out, but they did it through checkpoints, like stowing away in false bottoms of cars and stuff like that. There were people who snuck in or out, but just going for it over the wall, zero people made it just going for it over the wall. When it was barbed wire as they were building the wall and it kept progressing, there were people that made it over. You can see on the video that some people knew, like, once that barbed wire went up, it wasn't going to get better. And you can see people going through, and this guy doesn't see the barbed wire and catches him in the face. You see it from a distance. Oh man, that hurts me every time I see the video. You'll see it when we get there. But Berlin splits their stuff in half, splits their society in half. It becomes extremely famous because America points to the Berlin Wall from here until the wall is going to eventually come down in 1989. In which so we are here in the 1960s. In 1989 is when the wall comes down. They're going to point to that wall, America will, as a proof that communism doesn't work. They have to keep a wall. They have to build a wall to keep people in a communist country. America didn't build that wall. All right, because people aren't leaving the democracy to go to a communist country. So the reason the Berlin Wall becomes so famous is we talk about it all the time. Every chance that we get to point out why democracy must be better than communism for the average person.
In August, East German troops began building a wall to separate East Berlin from the western zones. The wall was meant to stop immigration to the west. It became the newest symbol of division between east and west, a physical iron curtain made of brick, mortar, stone, and steel. But the wall could not stop those determined to reach freedom.
That person there at the end. Every time I see that, I'm like, don't like. So hopefully they were okay. So this is the final form of the wall. You can see here, this is probably in the 1980s. I mean, it had to be late 1980s. This might have been after the parts of the wall were already coming down. Well, no, because you can see people here. So this is probably the year that the wall will eventually come down. So this is its super final form. And the reason you can tell that is it says 88 there. The wall comes down in 89. So the wall's still here. So it was 89 or earlier, and it was definitely 88, unless they were just predicting the future on stuff. Texas A&M, whatever. So clearly this is the American side that the picture is being taken from, because I promise you there's no graffiti on the Russian side. So here is what you would have to do if you're like, I'm going for it today to cross the wall. So this here is like a 20-foot wall, all right? And you come and you're going to try to jump over this wall. Okay. Well, when you jump over the wall here, you're going to land here in the sand. This is filled with landmines, all right? And so you're going to try to scamper across all these landmines to get to another. And this here has the top of this probably 5-foot fence has a electrified fence that if you touch it, you'll die. So you have to like jump out of sand over a would you be an athlete? Then to scamper across another landmine laden thing to another electric fence here to clear that one, and then clear another big wall that has another electric fence on the top of it, all while this dude right here shoots at you with the sniper rifle. You ain't making it. I mean, you're just not. If you try to do it in the middle of the night, it's lit up like the 4th of July. You're not making, like, you're just not. You're not going for it and making it. Nobody just went for it, made it. There were people who escaped, or escaped, I guess that's the term you want to use. It's not necessarily a prison, but in America, we're like, Soviet Union is a prison. There were people who made it across, but they did so in the checkpoints where the supplies came in or out. And I mean, people got caught all the time doing it. But there were some people who made it out through the checkpoint. All right. So we, America, had just gotten done almost dying from the Cuban Missile Crisis. We need to not die. So here's how we are going to not die even more. All right. We need to ease tensions between us and Russia. All right. One of the most important things to do is create a phone line between the president of the United States and the leader of Russia, for Nikita Khrushchev at the time. So the president of the United States, and right here when we're talking about is JFK, needs to be able to communicate with the leader of Russia, who at this time when this is created is Nikita Khrushchev. They make one. It's called the hotline, all right, which is a direct connection, which is where you ever hear the term hotline today comes from this. It is a direct connection between the two. So they literally like run a cord around the world. Like process that so that these two phones will connect. It's like the one line that goes into the Soviet Union. There's like a red phone that sits on the president's desk and one red phone that sits on the leader of Russia and the Soviet Union's desk. You pick it up, the other one rings, and they can immediately talk to each other so that you don't almost nuke each other due to lack of communication, which is very similar of what happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we almost about killed each other. So the hotline is extremely important. It is not something you want to make a prank call on. You don't want to like be taking a tour of the White House, be like, hey, look at that red phone. You're like, America's nuking you. And then we all die because Russia will just launch nukes on us. So I don't know if it's still there today in the same format. I'm sure it's not in the same format. I'm sure we have a direct connection somehow today with all these different countries. But at the time, we had to have a communication with Russia. So the hotline eased tensions because we can immediately communicate. The next one, and this is important, is the Limited Test Ban Treaty. We were smart enough to figure this out before it ever became an issue. We were afraid that we're going to detonate a nuke, testing it, all right? And it's going to blow like 10 miles into the air like it always does. And then a big storm's going to come and take all that radioactive stuff, that really dangerous stuff, and take it from the middle of nowhere, wherever we detonated it, and drop it like right on Russia. All right. We killed 10 million Russian people on accident. Russia's not going to be like, shame, shame, is World War III. We realized that detonating nukes on land can accidentally cause World War III completely unintentionally. So we're going to create the Limited Test Ban Treaty saying you can no longer test nukes on land. Meaning, in the atmosphere. And the reason that, so they say atmosphere, but we're talking about if we're just setting on land and detonating it, because when you detonate, everything blows up into the atmosphere. So what we do now, present day, when we need to test nukes, and this is what all countries do, is we dig a hole like a mile deep in the ground, and then we put the bomb like a mile deep in the ground and detonate it underground, because radioactive stuff goes down. All right, so like the creatures in the middle of the earth all have 6 legs, but there's not creatures in the middle of the earth. But that is how we detonate stuff down, and we use like earthquake stuff to figure out how effective the bomb was. But we decided, and Russia's going to agree to as well, no longer are we going to be detonating them on land. We can do all our tests by burying the bombs and then detonating them. Detonating them on land is just asking for trouble. So we come up with a limited test ban treaty before it ever becomes an issue to prevent us from accidentally starting World War III. All right. So a couple other things that JFK does. Keep in mind, now JFK is relatively popular. He's about approval rate 60% popularity. There's still 40% that don't like him. He is not, when JFK is alive, he is not the most popular president known to man, like people like to make him out to be now. He will become very popular after he's assassinated, because presidents always get very popular after they've been shot. As crazy as that sounds, it's a fact. So JFK, he is liked. He is not disliked. But once he is assassinated, his popularity will skyrocket. But now he is popular enough that he can get some stuff done. So here's some of the stuff that he does. He calls his time in office the New Frontier. FDR in American history had the New Deal. JFK calls it his New Frontier, in which he is going to try to change America for the better. He does increase minimum wage, increased military spending to stimulate the economy. He creates the Peace Corps, which is still around today. And then this one, he creates the Alliance for Progress. Here's what happens. So I laugh because I'm imagining the logic at the time. We're going to give $12 billion to South America if they promise they're not going to be communist. Alliance for Progress. All right. Let me explain the logic in America. Daggone Cuba, they done became the communist. Oh my gosh. And they done speak the Spanish. Do you think it's possible that people that done speak the Spanish are more likely to become communist? Well, Billy, that might be a thing. Oh my gosh, it might be. You know who else speaks a whole bunch of the Spanish? The South America. We don't want them to become communist. Do you think if we give them $12 billion to not be communist, they might not be communist? I bet they will. This is literally what we do. We give $12 billion to countries in South America who were never going to be communist to begin with, money to not be communist. So they're like, thanks. Sure. We won't be communist. It's kind of like the Marshall Plan. We're just throwing money around, make them not communist. They weren't going to be communists anyway, but they're like, we'll take your money. So the Alliance for Progress, we give $12 billion to South America so they don't become communist. So right here, he wants to do more, but he lacks mandate. So JFK doesn't have a mandate. So what is a mandate? A mandate is not when you and your boy go watch a movie. That's not a mandate. All right. Mandate is overwhelming public support by the American people. He really wants to do stuff for civil rights. The civil rights movement is just roaring right now. He really wants to get involved. But every time he mentions civil rights, his approval rating goes down. So JFK desperately wants to do stuff for civil rights, but it's just not a popular thing. Again, as we had talked about in the civil rights unit, once he gets assassinated, we're getting ready to talk about what happens. Once he gets assassinated, all of a sudden everybody loves everything JFK wanted to do. So they're like, yeah, civil rights is a good idea. So his vice president, Lyndon B. Johnson, is going to be a huge advocate for civil rights, even though Lyndon B. Johnson may not initially have wanted to do civil rights. Since JFK did, JFK dies. Now the American people support civil rights, and that puts Lyndon B. Johnson in a position to pass this these Civil Rights Act of 1964, Voting Rights Act of 1965 that we had already talked about. All right, so this is a picture of testing in the atmosphere. Like if you test a bomb, it goes up in the atmosphere. Don't be communist to South America. There does become some communist countries in South America, but Alliance for Progress didn't have anything to do with it. All right. Now, so I laugh because I realize we're like, let's make spaceships is literally what we decided. So in 1957, this is before JFK is president, Russia launches a satellite. All a satellite is something that goes in orbit and just circles America. It's called Sputnik. Changes the world. Russia launches this thing in orbit, and it just circles America. Or it circles the world, all right? And blinks a little light letting you know where it is. That's all it does. But the fact that we can look up in the sky, and we can see a Russian satellite go by, and there's nothing we can do about it. It freaks us out. We're like, oh my gosh, if they can put a satellite up there, can they put a missile up there? Like, and everybody freaks out. So if Russia's going to do it, we're going to do it. One of the biggest chest-bumping matches between us and Russia in the Cold War is the space race. Like, absolutely. Now, spoiler alert, we're going to land on the moon and claim we won, and it's such an American way of doing things. So here's what happens. They put a satellite in space. We're like, all right, it's go time. So we're like, we're going to put a satellite in space, and our spaceships keep, like, our rockets just keep blowing up. Like, we can't do it. We finally get a satellite into space. Russia is already launching animals into space, all right? And then they eventually get some of them back. We're not real nice to animals throughout history. They eventually get some of them back. We can't get a rocket ship to take off. Like, they are so far ahead of us. JFK comes out in 1960 and says, not only will America go to the moon in this decade, means the 1960s, not only will we go to space, we're going to take a dude to the moon. He's going to get out of his spaceship, walk around on the daggone moon, put America flag down, hop back in the spaceship, fly back to Earth. America. So everybody's like, what? Like, we can't get a rocket ship to take off. Like, much less put a human in it, much less get it out of orbit, much less go to like another planet. Like, what are you talking about? Like, so it's like crazy, but he spends a whole bunch of money and they're like, all right, I guess. So nobody really takes it seriously. Like, they're going to try. They're trying hard. There's a whole bunch of really smarty pants guys, and NASA gets created and all this other stuff. When JFK is assassinated, and again, we're going to talk about the assassination. When JFK is assassinated, it's a reset for NASA, because his lasting legacy, one of the things he said is, we're going to the moon this decade, before 1970. When he dies, everybody's like, it's go time. Let's figure this out. And it's one of the most, there's all these people who claim that the moon landing is fake. It's not. And you can go look up all the reasons why it's not fake. I go into, people love to do conspiracies at this time. It's not fake. It's not. It would have been harder to fake it than it would to actually do it based on the technology at the time. Anyway, the reason people want to say it's fake is it's so unbelievable. And it really is absolutely impressive on what we're able to do. But it's like, all right, Russia beats us at every single step. We're like, all right, Russia, the real game is who can orbit Earth first? And then Russia orbits Earth first. And we're like, no. The first one is who can put a man in orbits Earth first. And then Russia beats us and orbits Earth first. We're like, okay, it's the first one that can do something else. And then they beat us at that. We're like, okay, the real one is who can put a man on the moon first. And then we do that first. And we're like, okay, game over. We're done. We win. And then this is literally how, so we got beat at every single step except putting a man on the moon. And then we're like, we're not going to play anymore. So we actually do, in 1969, we launch a human being out of orbit, goes to the moon and lands their spaceship, gets out of the spaceship. I got a picture here. Gets out of the spaceship, puts America flag down, gets back in our spaceship, comes back to Earth safely, and we do it on live TV. It is mind blowing. It is super awesome. It is and we do it like 2 more times to say we can, and then we don't because why? But there's all these conspiracies like that. It's a conspiracy that we didn't actually go to the moon. We did. I mean, we did. It's just when things are hard to believe, people like to come up with conspiracies. There's all the ones, Stanley Kubrick did it in the movie studio and all this other stuff. And they're like, why does the flag wave? There's no atmosphere because of the vibrations. This flag, by the way, it is still up there, but it's white because there's no atmosphere. So it's wiped it out now. So it's just a white flag. It's all the color has been taken off of it with the sun since they don't have an atmosphere. Anywho, all right. So space race started with JFK, takes place throughout the 1960s. All right, Kennedy is assassinated. Now, if you think there's some conspiracy theories with the moon landing, there is tons on Kennedy. Now, I love that was one of the things that first got me interested in history was conspiracy theories. And man, there are so many on Kennedy because there's just some things that don't really add up. So I'm going to be kind of a killjoy here. Right, if you're a big conspiracy theory person. So I've gone through the whole gamut of conspiracy theories on Kennedy. I am now back to Lee Harvey Oswald did it himself. New technology has come out. They've recreated it. Some of the things that didn't seem possible then, when you recreate it, it does seem possible. So sorry. I wish I could give you some nuggets of awesomeness here. Now, it just seems weird. There's a lot of things here that seem odd. All right, that lead to conspiracy theories. So if you want to if you go type in JFK assassination conspiracy, all right, have fun going down that wormhole because you'll be there forever and you will be 100% convinced it was a conspiracy and second government on Grassy Knoll, Governor Connolly shot him. There's all these things, and as much as I love them, I've gone through every one of them throughout time, and they all get disproved because you look at it logically, and they just sadly get disproved. There is stuff we don't know. I will agree to that, but I don't think there's some huge, massive thing. Motivations, yes, there could absolutely be motivations for it, but I say there's 2 things I want to clarify before we talk about the Kennedy assassination. And I should have started with this. Number 1, I'm not going to talk about any conspiracy theories. All right. I'm only going to tell you what is verifiable, what actually happened. So everything that I'm getting ready to teach you actually happened. This is not, here's what he was thinking, here's why he did it. I'm going to completely leave out any conspiracy stuff. So if you want to go look at conspiracy stuff, you can take all the stuff I'm telling you and know that this is fact and waste a whole bunch of time looking up conspiracy theories. And they'll convince you. You'll be convinced it was Martians if you look at it long enough. Anyway, that's the first thing I want to tell you is I'm not going to talk about any conspiracy theories here because there's too many, and I'm just going to stick with what is verifiably a fact. The second one, there is a video of JFK being assassinated. It is an actual color video, and it's called the Zapruder film, spelled Zap Rudder. All right, I am not going to show that to you. Not going to show it to you. Yes, it is an actual video of JFK getting his head blown off. It is as horrific as is it. I'm not going to show it to you. All right. There's people like, well, it's history. Yeah, well, just because we have the technology to record things that happen, there's a lot of things that happen in real life that you don't need to see. Like or you're not going to have your teacher show up and show it to you as a captive audience and require it. I'm not going to do that. It is a real human being getting murdered. It is not a movie and these other stuff where it's actors and stuff like that. Not only that, because we'll show stuff in Vietnam that, is PG-13 level. This is as R as it gets, man. And I'm just not going to do it. I think there are teachers that do it, and I can't justify it. So there is a video of it. It's like 13 seconds long. It's silent. It's made by a guy named Zapruder, and I'm going to talk about him. So I want to preface all this when we talk about it, because I want to show you a video clip of them talking about JFK assassination. They're not actually going to show you the assassination because I'm not going to. Just not going to, because it's as gruesome as you can imagine. All right. So if you're super like, I'm going to go do it, it's a quick Google. It's one of the most famous videos out there. I ain't showing you a real person getting murdered. I'm just not going to do it. All right. So JFK is assassinated. Let me just... So, shot by Lee Harvey Oswald, possible conspiracy, Texas, Warren Commission. There are some questions that go along with this. So, the Warren Commission comes out in 1963, says Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. In 1979, said it could have been a conspiracy, and that's kind of where it gets left at. Lyndon B. Johnson becomes the president. So, this happens in 1963. Here's where the story starts at. All right. In 1963, JFK, he's 3 years in office. He has been having beef with Governor Connally in Texas. Governor Connally's a Republican. JFK is a Democrat. They politics stuff, whatever like it. Well, JFK spends a whole bunch of money opening up a NASA space station in Texas. So now Governor Connally of Texas likes JFK, and he's like, come on down and visit. So JFK gets on a plane and travels down to Dallas, Texas to meet Governor Connally, go open this new space center, and Governor Connally is going to give him a tour of the city because Governor Connally now likes him because he gave him a bunch of money. So JFK goes down. He opens the space center. He goes down to NASA, opens up the space center. He leaves there, gets in a car with Governor Connally, and he's going to be assassinated in the car. There's a video I'll show you after this. All right. So this is a screenshot from the Zapruder film. All right. This is necessary to show you where they're sitting in the car. So it's a limousine. All right. You got Governor Connally sitting here in front of JFK. So this is JFK here. This is his wife, Jackie Onassis Kennedy, sitting next to him. In front of him is Governor Connally. So it's a limousine. JFK is in the back waving. So they're just cruising through Dallas, waving at everybody when the assassination is going to take place. Here's what happens. All right. There is a guy named Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald was a Marine. He was a sniper in the Marines, had gone through training and had a dishonorable discharge. He's a communist sympathizer. He goes to Russia. All right. He marries a woman in Russia and comes back to America. All right. So he is back here. He is in Texas. He's a communist sympathizer. He has a wife from Russia, lives in Texas, Dallas, Texas. He's really upset with the way JFK has treated Cuba, who is communist, in this whole thing, puts an embargo on him and all this other stuff. Lee Harvey Oswald does not like JFK. All right. So when he finds out that JFK is like cruising through his hometown, he is going to decide to assassinate JFK. Now, when I say decide, this is where the conspiracy theories come in. Did somebody tell him to do it? Did somebody pay him to do it? Like, is he part of a whatever? All right. But Lee Harvey Oswald is going to take a rifle and shoot at JFK. That is a verifiable fact. There is a school book depository building. Basically, when you get new textbooks at school, all your old ones, you turn them in, and they go and they store them somewhere until it's time to recycle them to make new books. So there's a building where there's just a bunch of textbooks that sit in there, and it has to be like heated and air conditioned so that they don't warp. So they just sit in this big building. So nobody goes in there. Lee Harvey Oswald, knowing in advance where the parade route is going to be for this, gets a job at the school book depository building and has access to it. On the day of this parade, he goes to the top floor with a sniper rifle, sets up a shot right at the road, knowing JFK is going to come by, knowing he's going to be in an open limousine. All these things we don't do anymore. Like when the president's going to come through, they don't tell you in advance because of this. He doesn't have an open limousine anymore because of this. So he knows exactly where the president's going to come through at. As the president comes through, And this is on the Zapruder film, and I'll mention that here in a second. They open fire at JFK. All right, first shot misses the car. Second shot, it goes through the back of his neck and comes out his necktie. All right, and he holds his throat. This is what happens here. So as is and the second shot also hits Governor Connolly in the front seat. All right. So Jackie Kennedy, while this is happening here, let me point to my mouse. Jackie Kennedy, at this point in the video is only like 13 seconds long, is trying to figure out what's happening to JFK. The car is still moving. The third shot is gruesome. It's a headshot, and it basically blows his head off. It's awful. All right. And Jackie Kennedy freaks out. Everybody's like, oh, she tried to jump on the back of the car to grab a piece of his brain or something. She just freaked out, tried to get out of the car. And the Secret Service agent like chases a car down on foot, which if you watch the video, I'm not encouraging you to because it's gruesome. Look at the Secret Service agent who catches up to a speeding car on foot and jumps up on the back of it, grabs Jackie Kennedy and throws her back on top of her husband as he protects him. The most amazing athletic feat I've ever seen. Anyway, once Lee Harvey Oswald has fired his gun 3 times, JFK is dead. There's a whole conspiracy theory out there. There's a second gunman on the grassy knoll because he got shot from the front. I'm not going into any of that. Lee Harvey Oswald fired a shot. He at least made contact one time. But for this story, he fired his gun. He shot JFK. If nobody else was involved, JFK was going to die. He shot and assassinated JFK. We're going to go with that. Lee Harvey Oswald is going to leave the school book depository building and run off down the road. Everybody's freaking out. Nobody knows what just happened. So he's running down the road. A police officer sees this guy like running down the road, Lee Harvey Oswald, and like it's like, hey, what are you doing? Lee Harvey Oswald attacks the cop, takes the cop's own gun, and murders the cop. All right. Then he's still freaking out, and he runs to a movie theater and just runs into the movie theater and sits down to try to hide. Well, when he does this, he didn't buy a ticket, so the movie theater's like, hey, what are you doing? This guy just ran in here without buying a ticket. So they call the cops, they go up, they arrest him, they realize this is Lee Harvey Oswald, the guy that they think did it. His palm print is on the weapon that he left up at the window. And he is taken to jail. JFK is taken to the hospital where he is pronounced dead 35 minutes later. That they say that in the video. I want to clarify. That doesn't mean he didn't die instantly, because he did. All right. You're not officially dead until a doctor comes in and says, yeah, he's dead. And that means you're going to stop trying to bring him back to life. All right. So while it says he is pronounced dead 35 minutes after the shot, he was dead instantly. They were just trying to work on him for 35 minutes until like the doctor comes in and says he's dead. There's nothing else we can do. So this is a picture of JFK. He is replaced by Lyndon B. Johnson, who becomes the president shortly after this. All right. I'll show you a video. This is not the Zapruder film, but this is kind of the newsreel of what happened when he was shot.
Of all the days that shook the world, November the 22nd, 1963 must rank as one of the most dramatic. President Kennedy and his wife Jackie had arrived in Dallas, Texas to attend a Democratic Party political festival. The presidential car, with Governor Connolly of Texas in the front and the Kennedys in the back, was traveling through the city center. There was a festive, happy mood as the crowds along the route cheered the president along. Then suddenly, shots rang out. The firing seemed to have come from the Texas school book repository. The president and Governor Connolly had both been hit. Police immediately sealed off the area and the search for the gunman began. Meanwhile, the president's car had been driven straight to the hospital. Surgeons worked on a dreadful bullet wound in the head, but it was to no avail. A Roman Catholic priest was called, and the president was given the last rites. He died 25 minutes after the shots. When the full horror of what had happened got through to the people of Dallas, there was much grief, as there was throughout the world later that day. The gun used to kill the president was quickly recovered. On it were the palm prints of Lee Harvey Oswald. 4 years earlier, he had defected to the Soviet Union.
That's Lee Harvey Oswald.
And married a Russian. As the president's body was taken back to Washington, Vice President Lyndon Johnson picked up the reins of government.
This is a sad time for all people. We have suffered a loss that cannot be weighed. For me, it is a deep personal tragedy. I know that the world shares the sorrow that Mrs. Kennedy and her family bear. I will do my best. That is all I can do. I ask for your help.
The Warren report into Kennedy's assassination has been challenged by historians and many others, but as yet no one has come up with a definitive reason for the tragedy that day in Dallas.
All right, so for U.S. history, I could just move on here, but there's more twists and turns in this story of stuff that really happened, of where all these conspiracy theories come from. So Lee Harvey Oswald, this is the guy who shot. So Lee Harvey Oswald is the guy who shot JFK. All right, he's under arrest. They got him. All right, what's he say? Nothing. And here's why. And this is where it starts getting super weird. All right. And it progressively gets weirder. And this is all the conspiracy theories. We're going to go back and start looking at this. There's a couple things here. So, you know what I want to do? Nah, I need to do it now. I need to do it now. All right. So, Lee Harvey Oswald, the local police are who have him. The FBI is like, don't you dare interrogate him and screw up this investigation. This guy just murdered the president. Tomorrow, we're going to show up and we're going to interrogate him. So don't talk to him. Don't do anything stupid. Just hold him there. We're going to see him the next day. So the Dallas police are like, okay, fine. So they keep him in a jail cell. In theory, he's like supposed to be like, oh, there's a conspiracy. Whether he says that or not, who knows? So the next day, the FBI comes out. Now, the FBI isn't going to interrogate him at the police station. They want to interrogate him at the FBI building, which is down the street. So they're going to take Lee Harvey Oswald, who has yet to be interrogated, and march him from the police station into the back of a car to take him down the street to the FBI building. Well, on the walk from the building to the car, every newspaper reporter on earth is there to watch this. So all the police show up knowing they're getting ready to be on national TV, and they're all wearing suits and ties. So police aren't wearing their uniforms, all right? As they are walking him to the car, this dude comes running out of the crowd and shoots Lee Harvey Oswald point blank in the chest and kills him, all right? The reason this guy didn't stick out is because everybody's wearing suits and ties. So he just runs out of the crowd and shoots Lee Harvey Oswald point blank and kills him. All right. And so nobody ever gets to interrogate Lee Harvey Oswald. I have a video clip of that.
Madness and hate erupt anew in Dallas as President Kennedy's accused assassin is shot down himself during a jail transfer. There's an ominous symbol in Lee Harvey Oswald's murder weapon as he is taken to the city jail basement where an armored car is to move him to a maximum security cell. Oswald walks his last mile. His assailant moves in from the right.
He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot.
Now, from another camera, the motion is slowed. The murderer moves in, and here is the shame of all America as Jack Rubenstein takes the law unto himself. The dying Oswald is rushed to the same hospital where President Kennedy died. Doctors work to save his life. But 48 hours and 7 minutes after the president's death, his accused slayer is dead.
So to clarify, if you're like, Mr. Wagstaff, you just said you were going to show those people getting shot. That, again, I'm warning you, if you watch the Zapruder film, it ain't pretty. It ain't pretty. I would suggest not watching the Zapruder film. To clarify here, so Jack Ruby runs out and kills Lee Harvey Oswald. That seems odd. Never interrogated Lee Harvey Oswald. So when they arrest Jack Ruby, first off, Jack Ruby has terminal cancer, and he doesn't have long to live anyway. Jack Ruby, here's his reasoning for killing Lee Harvey Oswald, and it is the weirdest reason ever. It's not that he loves JFK. This dude's not even registered to vote, has never voted before. He's not political. However, Jack Ruby, the guy who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, all right, and I gotta, this is a picture. This is Jack Ruby running up to Lee Harvey Oswald. So in this picture, like, how'd they not stop him? Well, you saw the video. He just runs up and does it. All right. Jack Ruby owns a strip club. All right. He believes, this is what he claims, that when JFK dies, this is going to make Johnson the president. He thinks Johnson's going to be more conservative than Lee Harvey, is going to be more conservative than JFK, and may shut down his strip club. So he's furious at Lee Harvey Oswald for making Johnson the president. Yeah, that's like, and then dies shortly after this of cancer, which he was going to die anyway. Everybody's like, what? That's like that clearly sounds like a made up excuse. Like somebody would have hired Jack Ruby to shut up Lee Harvey Oswald. Oh, well, we'll just go with it. So it's enough for them to open up an investigation in this called the Warren Commission, in which they take a gander at this and they're like, nah, it's not a conspiracy. Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Case closed. All right. Everything's top secret. Case is closed. 1963. Moving on. Here's where all the conspiracy theories come out. There is a dude there that day. He was a German immigrant into America. He is a dentist. So he is wealthy, but he doesn't speak any English. He has a brand new device called a camcorder and was recording as JFK went by. His name is Zapruder. All right. So he's sitting here videoing a tiny little optical thing. It's a color camera, goes by, and he captures the entire assassination on video. But he doesn't know it at the time. He just knows it goes by, and then after the president goes by, everybody's screaming what's going on. So he doesn't speak English. So he's like, whatever. People act really weird when the president comes by. So he just goes home. He doesn't read the newspaper or anything because he doesn't speak English. He eventually finds out the president's been assassinated. He's like, oh, that's crazy. Doesn't put two and two together. It's not until later on, because he doesn't watch the video because he doesn't have anything to play it back on at the time. It's not until after the Warren Commission comes out, which is a couple months later, that he is talking to like one of his friends who speaks German, like, yeah, you know what happened right down the street? And the guy's like, that's crazy. I was there. And then he's like, I was videoing and, oh. And he goes and watches the video and realizes he has the video of JFK being assassinated that nobody has seen. There's no video. Like, so he's like, like, what am I going to do? So he immediately gives it to the media. He gives it to everybody because he's like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. And it's a silent video. The video is what causes all these conspiracies. Because JFK, when he is writing, so he gets shot from behind. The video, the Zapruder film, clearly looks like he gets shot from the front because his head goes backwards. That is going to be what causes the conspiracy theories. Because they're like, let's go investigate this. They're like, we already did. It's closed. Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. They're like, no possible way. JFK's head went backwards when he got shot instead of forwards, like should have happened had he been shot. So the Zapruder film comes out after the fact and leads to all of these conspiracy theories that there is a chance that they got it wrong. And this is where the conspiracy theories come from, is Zapruder releases the video he didn't know he had until after the investigation was closed and everything was top secret after that. All right. Lyndon B. Johnson, last thing we'll talk about here. He takes over. He is a very good politician. He wants to create the Great Society, which he wants to end poverty in America, do all the stuff in America to basically end poverty. He's like, if we're the richest country on earth, there's no reason people should be starving to death. It just should not happen. He's like, I'm not trying to make everybody rich, but there's got to be a minimum standard of living in America. And he really tries a whole bunch in the Great Society. He creates the Economic Opportunity Act. It was $1 billion to help the underprivileged. He creates Medicare and Medicaid as well. That gets passed while he's the president. He signs the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Civil Rights in 1965. Man, he does all this good stuff for the American people. People must love him, right? One of the most hated presidents we've ever had. Because, as we'll talk about in the next unit, Vietnam. Vietnam is all anybody talked about, and he was hated for it. So as we move away from Vietnam, we look back on Lyndon B. Johnson, and history is treating him nicer now because he does a lot of good things, but he was so overshadowed by Vietnam at the time. So Medicare is created by him, where you care for old people. So after 65 years old, your health insurance is paid for. And then Medicaid is if people who can't afford health insurance, the government will come in and help them get health insurance. So Medicare comes out at this time. Took them like 20 years in order to get that passed. So health insurance in the United States has always been a battle. And we'll be done for the day.